Good afternoon. This is Zachariah Jackson, Basa News. I'm honored to be here in Newark, New Jersey, sitting with the next mayor of Newark, New Jersey.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Reverend Jackson.
I was
We
honored
claim it and receive it.
Yes. Gayle, people want to know, they ask me, they know of you. They want to know your own words. Who is Gayle Chaneyfield Jenkins?
I am so honored, first of all, that you took time out to let me share my story, my testimony with everyone. And Gayle Chaneyfield Jenkins is a young girl who grew up in the city of Newark with both parents in my household.
Okay.
My mother and father, Joe and Martha, and I was raised in Hayes Homes Projects.
Oh, okay.
Off of what is now called Urban Turner Boulevard, which was Belwan Avenue at the time. And my sisters and I'm the youngest of 4 girls.
Okay.
And unfortunately, all of my sisters have preceded me in death,
Sorry.
as well as my mother from breast cancer. So
Okay.
I'm very active in educating women of color, especially about breast cancer awareness and early diagnosis, because we have a higher mortality rate of that of our suburban counterparts of dying of breast cancer. But I grew up in the Central Ward, and then my family, we moved up to the West Ward. We lived in Bradley Courts, and I'm that product of Newark that my parents were always politically involved,
Okay.
but they weren't politicians.
All right.
And actually, my mother and her twin sister saw a need after the riots to start 1967 riots here in the city of Newark, to start an organization called Babyland Nursery at the time, which is now Babyland Family Services.
Okay, I think I've heard.
Because Babyland was actually the first infant daycare center in the state of New Jersey, the 3rd in the country. Because at that time, women needed to go back to work.
Sure.
And in 1967, 68, there was only preschool counsel, and your child had to be 3 years old and potty trained. So my mother and aunt and a group of women made a lot of sacrifices. My aunt went to Oxford for some intensive training, because in Europe, that's the only place you can go and get early childhood back then. She came back and she started Babyland Nursery along with my aunt and Janet Tucker and some other women. But my father and some people from Queen of Angels Church, where we were going at the time, helped Monsignor Linder, and they started New Community Corporation. And New Community Corporation started off as a housing complex, then it expanded to a nursing home, then it expanded to having a place for senior citizens to live. So I'm a product of 2 people who were public servants in a different way.
Sure.
They believed that if they had the means, which they did, to leave Newark at the time of the riots, that if people like them left, the city would not be rebuilt. So they stayed and helped to rebuild the city in their own way. And so after that, I became the product of the seeds that they harvest, the harvest that they planted with the seeds. Doing community work, doing summer enrichment programs, working with young people. And then I became an elected official.
Okay.
And
I think I voted for you.
Thank you, because I was at large. I ran at large in the whole city. And actually, I became an elected official because people in the community were saying to me, well, since you're willing to speak truth to power, and you're willing to talk to these people, you should run for office. And I was like, oh, I don't want to run for office. That's not for me. And I actually went down to a revival at St. James AME Church. And on that particular day, Reverend Dr. Buster Soares and Reverend Dr. William Watley were preaching about the advantages and disadvantages of leadership. And I went to them after the church service was over, and I said, you gentlemen don't know me, but you are about to change the course of history.
Wow.
in the city of Newark. And when I left there, I drove down to City Hall and took out petitions to run at large. And I didn't know that I was going to be perceived as the new community Babyland candidate.
Okay.
So at that point, the reverberations happened around the city. And some of the board members from New Community said to me, "You put us in an awkward position. We've never ran a candidate before. And, oh, we're so upset that you did this." And I said, one woman in particular, Miss Bateman, said, "Well, we're like Switzerland. We don't get involved."
Okay.
And I said, "But you all do. You help other people get elected."
Sure.
And I'm sorry. All that time I was sitting here at meetings with you all growing up with my father in the room or my Aunt Mary Smith being in the room. I thought you all meant the things that you said.
Okay.
You said be the change
Yes.
in the world that you want to see. So I was doing that. So if that's not what you wanted, I'm sorry, I'm in this fight. So being the baby girl of 4 sisters, my mother used to tell us, you don't have no brothers, so don't come up here running crying that somebody beat you up in the project. You better handle it, all right? So I said, so you all, listen, if I don't win, they're going to come after you all if they perceive me as your candidate, so you better get in there and help me win. So I was able to win, not on the first go-round of 1994, but in the special election of 1995. I was victorious.
And became councilwoman at large.
Councilwoman at large, served the city with a group of people who, at that time, that's when politics was about integrity and quality and knowledge.
Yes.
You know, I served with a Donald Tucker, Ron Rice, Donald Bradley, Hank Martinez, Tony Carino. Mildred Crump was the first African-American female. She had been elected the year prior to me. Luis Quintana had been elected the year prior to me as the first Latino councilman at large. So, and then learning under someone that was a mayor like Sharp James, the lessons learned were invaluable.
Yes.
And that's when the city was, we understood the check and balances of government. We understood that the council in the city of Newark is part of the Faulkner form of government. And it means strong council, strong mayor. Okay? So we would agree, and sometimes we would disagree. And when we did, we held the mayor accountable, and he would hold the council accountable.
Sure.
But it was in those days that after you would have a political disagreement, when you saw each other later on, you would sit down and break bread. Sure. Okay? So those days are gone, unfortunately.
The game has changed.
Oh, it's changed so much so that it has forced people of quality to think twice or even hesitate about getting into a political race or holding political office. The mudslinging, the name calling, the accusations. But more importantly, just the level of consistency in holding government accountable has frustrated those people who know what government is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be that bridge that helps, that safety net, that helps the residents. And when it becomes about self-grandization or making your pockets full while you're in office, it turns good people off.
You know, a lot of people ask me that when you get in office, you know, there's a reentry program that is on the minds of many people, and they are asking, how will you deal with that? You know, some people wonder, will you just cut the program out? You know, there's words out there. You know,
Absolutely.
Ask, you know, they want to know, and a lot of the constituents in the city of Newark is wondering about that right there. How would you handle the reentry program? Would you improve it? Is it necessary?
I'm so glad you asked me that question, Redmond. It is extremely important that people who have served time and have gone through the criminal justice system, through due process, maybe they were guilty, maybe they weren't.
Sure.
But when they have served their time, that we allow them the opportunity to turn their lives around.
Sure.
And to make money in an honest manner.
Yes. Yes.
I was approached by several taxpayers who said to me, Gayle, I don't think it's fair that when somebody pleads guilty to tax evasion or pleads guilty to straw buying, of selling of houses, where they fraudulently gave banking institutions the impression that somebody was living there, that they are still able to profit from taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
So through that process, I was trying to narrowly say that if you just committed a felony, you should not be able to benefit while you're in jail from the profits of the citizens of the city of Newark.
Okay.
The language was written so broadly by the hands of my office, the clerk's office, too many cooks in the kitchen,
Sure. Sure. Yes,
the law department,
Okay.
in which it was turned around that Gayle Chaneyfield Jenkins is against prison reentry. She's against that, so they brought people down to the city council and said, people should have a second chance. And I'm like, wait a minute. One of my aides was a gentleman who served over 12 years in Leavenworth.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And when he came out and his parole officer asked him who was he working for, who was he going to work for, because he said he had found gainful employment, and he told him Councilwoman Gayle Chaneyfield Jenkins. At that time I was at large.
Mm-hmm.
The parole officer said to him, don't make me send you back to jail for lying. So he gave him the number,
Sure.
and the man called me, and my receptionist put him through.
Sure.
And I told him, I said, yes, I am going to be hiring Manny. And so, yes, I believe in people being able to get another job. But the one thing I would say about our current prison reentry program is that it is not as effective as it could be or should be.
And what would you do different?
Well, first of all, I would look at the fact that some people who went to prison
Sure.
may need remedial educational training.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with
All
that.
right.
Yes.
But then there are some who may have a vocation
Sure.
that they are passionate about.
Yes.
Because, we have young people who are drug dealers who operate multi-million-dollar businesses.
Sure.
Who can retain numbers in their head, who can process information and assign
Sure.
people as supervisors. So to turn that kind of passion into something productive and that they're not going to be penalized for doing something bad.
Sure.
There are people who will get into the culinary arts.
Sure.
Because
Of course, right. Yeah.
there is mobility in the culinary arts. There's people who are good with their hands.
Sure.
There's CDL licenses that you see people advertise and say,
and
we
pretty good jobs.
very good job.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do right now is we put people in just a job. We don't put them into a career path.
Okay, I understand.
Okay? So that is the mindset that we first have to change.
Okay.
Is there bilateral, unilateral? Is there upward mobility in the position we're putting you in?
Sure.
Or if we put you in that position, how long are we going to keep you there?
Sure.
What are the incentives that we're going to give you? Because if you have a felony, you might not be able to get a Pell Grant.
Sure.
But what can you do that is equivalent to that?
Sure.
So you may be interested in medicine,
Sure.
but you may be able to partner with one of the colleges in order to get training in phlebotomy, to be able to draw blood. A radiology technician. You may be able to take somebody's x-rays.
Sure,
All right.
sure.
You can be a dental technician. You can become a dental assistant.
Sure.
But those are the kinds of things we should be doing for people who have been incarcerated, because you want to give them a strategy to stay on that path. If they
Sure.
come out and they were frustrated because I was making a couple of grand a day.
Sure.
Now you got me in a job paying $8.75 an hour. My motivation, my sense of lifestyle is not there. All right. So it's hard. So we have to deal with that, but we have to also give them a pathway to not staying in that job that will get them frustrated, maybe not have benefits, and they say, well, I might as well go back and do what I was doing because at least I can hustle, and if my child needed to go to the doctor, I could pay for it.
Sure.
So I am very much for prison reentry programs. I am for also making sure that we connect with our institutions of medicine for counseling.
Sure.
Because some people may be suffering from depression.
Yes.
Some people may be suffering from the adjustment. I work with one of my aides, worked in the correction system.
Sure.
And so we need ex-prisoners who have been integrated back into society.
Yes.
To be able to talk to those who are just coming home.
Yes.
Okay, I had one young man tell me that for a whole year he would stand in his own apartment in the shower, but stand just right there. He would not use the tub, he would not move.
Just stay in the shower.
Because he had been in prison for over 15 years. So his mindset, we have to understand that when they go to prison, it's supposed to be about rehabilitation, and it's not. It's about containment.
Sure.
So we have to rehabilitate our men and women who come back.
Yes.
And have a program that offers them light at the end of the tunnel, not just a job for a couple of months and then they lose it.
Sure.
Because of frustration. Are we addressing their going back into the community? How do they assimilate back into the community?
That's very important.
Especially with women.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
Young women who mothers are in jail right now suffer the burden of knowing that, but the embarrassment,
sure,
the shame, the guilt. I've gone through it personally.
Okay.
My stepdaughter. I mean, she's gone through that,
sure.
You know, and I talk to her differently, and I tell my husband, you have to understand, for a young man to say, my father's in jail, or a young girl to say, my father's in jail, has a different perception from people than when you say, my mother's in jail.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because we are a people that's conditioned to let daddy go.
That's it.
Because mother's a full-time ill.
Absolutely. And then, so it's, my God, what did your mother do?
Exactly.
And a lot of these young girls are their moms are gone early in their life.
Sure, yes.
So who teaches them to become a woman?
Yes.
Who teaches them about the basic necessities, how to purchase a bra, the right bra? Who teaches them about how to cook, how to sew, how to hem their pants, how to take care of their children?
Sure.
And so it's a ripple effect that we need to address holistically. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, with the prison reentry programs, we need to be able to create entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's not always about sending somebody to work for somebody else. These people have skill sets.
Yes.
So maybe they learned how to become a barber.
Sure.
Okay.
And I know a barber that did that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, became very successful.
So when they come out on the street, we should be able to have access to capital.
Sure.
So that they would be able to fulfill their passion. Because when somebody is living and working in their passion, you know they exceed.
Yes. You know, I want to flip the script a little bit, and just right now, because people have talked to me about this here, and I ride through the city, and I see all the new construction. You know, there was a time when you could leave maybe this area and be on 78 in 5 minutes. But if you leave this area at 4 o'clock, it's going to take you quite some time to get to 78 because of the crowd, the hustle and the bustle that's going on, the new construction. And I mean, every time you ride down the street, there's men in the ground digging, laying wire, pipes, building all over. The people want to know, the citizens in Newark.
What about us?
What about us? How can your administration, I guess I can call it that, when we get officers.
Yes.
Yes. How can your administration connect the dots? Because everything that's happening to the city, people are wondering, am I going to be left out? You build the new buildings, are you pushing us back? You know, what are you doing? Freedom Heights and Avenue is going to be, and I'm happy. I'm happy for the PATH station that's supposed to come there. I'm happy for that. But I would be more happy to know that the people in Newark that born and bred, mothers was here, grandmothers was here during the riots, and suffered the Newark is nobody and Newark is nothing. We don't say that no more. No one can say that anymore. But if you go back to the 70s, the early 80s, and a good part of the 90s, you know, it was war-torn. Everything was about the riot, and others call it the rebellion, but everything was about the Great War. How do your administration, what will you guys do to connect the common people, to connect the people? Because people are frightened. We're happy. They're happy now, but they're frightened at the same time.
And rightfully so. Because that's one of the problems that is happening in the city of Newark. The disconnect to all of the progress that is happening.
Yes.
And I'll take a couple of the questions you asked. Number one, about the amount of cars you see leaving to go on 78, 21, Turnpike, 280, the mass exodus that happens in the city of Newark. My administration will be working very closely with the corporations in the downtown Newark and saying to them, we've got to reverse this tide.
Sure.
There are people who get up every morning right now in the city of Newark who go to work in New York, Jersey City, Trenton,
Sure.
Connecticut, Washington, that have the skill sets of the industries that are here.
Sure.
So instead of having Prudential have a secretary, administrative assistant coming down from West Caldwell to park on Halsey Street, why aren't we having Bertha Johnson, who has the same skill set,
Sure.
being able to drive from Johnson Avenue
Sure.
and park there, all right?
Yes.
Because we've never worked on the administratively highly skilled or professionally skilled people to connect them with the Blue Crosses, Blue Shields,
Sure.
the Panasonic.
Yes.
And we've never made those demands, okay, at the level that would be sustainable.
Sure.
It happened a bit in the 70s when you had Bell Telephone, Bell Atlantic, and Prudential and Public Service that opened up their doors finally to the affirmative action issues. And we had black people who were black and brown people who were going to work in those particular companies. But that was not sustained over the period of time that it needs to, in order to have these corporations say, listen, if you're going to get a benefit, then we have to get a benefit.
Sure.
But not just a one-shot injection benefit.
Sure.
It should be something that's sustainable,
Sure.
that lasts over a period of time. Now, also, we have people that are right now in the process of going through retirement at these various corporations.
Sure. Sure.
So why aren't we talking with these companies and saying, okay, so what's your industry that you're going to find that you're going to have less people in? Like I know for a fact Prudential has people that's in charge of the computers and stuff like that. They're going to max out in the next 10 years. So we should be preparing our students in school. We should be preparing our students in high school. We should be preparing our universities. We should be preparing people in occupational positions to be able to do those IT jobs.
Sure.
We should be making sure that we have that kind of conversation. We also should be making sure that we create entrepreneurship, because there used to be a time when you had 4 and 5 soul food restaurants in the city of Newark, and you got one now.
Yes.
Okay? So what happened to those kinds of places where we owned our own businesses and we employed our people?
Sure. Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
So entrepreneurship, I'm going to be very big on.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, entrepreneurship, because, if we go back 15 to 20 years, and I have to phrase it like this, the brothers that was on Horsley Street that made sure we had a Christmas hat.
That's right.
The brothers that was on Broad Street.
That's right.
When the stores ran out,
That's
when
right.
Woolworths and them
right.
brothers,
That's right.
okay, was there, and we was able to buy a hat for Christmas, a backpack for
A
the
purse.
kids, a purse for you guys or whatever, oils and things of that
Yes.
nature. And they kept the word real that I believe that investors rode by and took a look at that and said, you know what, this thing is possible again.
Oh, absolutely.
We can do it again.
Absolutely.
Now, are they being pushed out?
They're being hassled, they're being pushed out, but I have to tell you, I've been a champion for them since I've been on the city council.
Okay.
At one point in time, the vendors were being looked at as a nuisance, and I said, they're not a nuisance. That's how Macy's started,
Yes.
in a cart.
Yes.
Now, I think it's the responsibility of government as well as the private sector to help fund the carts
Sure.
that they use, so there'll be a uniformity.
Sure.
So they'll look more attractive.
Yes.
All right, and to also ensure that those guys do exist.
Yes.
There's the myth that, well, how can he be selling socks and he's in front of a place that's selling socks and paying taxes? Okay, but he's selling a different kind of socks.
Sure.
And if you have more in your store than what he has, your inventory should attract people inside the city of Newark, inside your store. I'll tell you one thing, those vendors have always been extremely helpful.
Yes.
They've always priced their things
yes.
and they've given quality.
Yes.
And I will dare say that they've been the eyes and ears for the police department.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
They
know
make
what's
sure
going on.
when something is going down or
Yes.
somebody's doing something wrong, they will go first and say, hey, chill, don't do that here.
Exactly.
We don't have
I've
that
seen
going
that driving
on.
through Horsley Street.
Absolutely.
I've seen that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
1,000%.
Yes.
So when people say, oh, well, they're selling drugs, find me one.
Yes.
Just find me one vendor down there that's doing that.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you, if that one is doing it, the other 99 don't know he exists.
Exactly.
He just started doing it because they self-police.
Yeah.
Because they want to monitor. They will say, man, you can't have that piece of rack hanging too far out because it obstructs the walkway and stuff like that. So I've seen them self-police. I've seen them assist people who have come and said, well, I don't have the money. I don't have the right amount. Go ahead, sis. You got it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So that kind of entrepreneurship. And a couple of them I've helped get stores.
Sure.
All right? And so therefore, that's what they want to do. If, they want to be able to take it to the next step.
Level.
I'm always looking at how do we be that bridge
Sure.
and that step to
Yes,
take it to the next level.
Yes.
As far as working with the unions and saying our people aren't getting the jobs.
Sure.
So we have an affirmative action department.
Yes.
So I always found it laughable, even under the James administration. Why are we the majority and we still have to have affirmative action? I think it's an oxymoron.
Sure.
Okay, who are we being affirmatively taking action for? The 10 or 12 Irish people who may still live in the city of Newark? Because we're the predominant number. That means we're not doing what we're supposed to connect those dots.
Sure.
And it's a long time coming. And so we have to make sure when we turn around, they say when we send somebody for these job fairs, how many job fairs are you going to have? And the people turn around and they go and then they don't get hired.
They need a job.
They need a job.
Yeah.
All right?
Sometimes the job fair is more attractive than the job.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
the stationery you get. Oh my God.
Thank you.
But what about the job?
What about the job? So don't build people's hopes up only to have them dashed, because when those people sit at those job fairs, they should have the amount of jobs that they're willing to hire. And if you know you're doing these job fairs, then you should be doing pre-screening
Sure.
from the city side.
Yes.
Where you can help that person take a resume
Yeah.
instead of telling them, make sure you bring your resume. They don't always have access to somebody who knows how to do a resume.
And especially with today, everything computerized and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Yes. It's just easier for them to actually help them than to have them to bring
To
them
do
in.
the pre-screening, to have them help in order, and then to know from the industry, what are you looking for?
Sure.
I was talking with a council person up in East Orange, and she works with Essex County Workforce Development. And she was telling me that there was a company that is hiring people at $18 an hour.
That's a good salary.
Starting salary, $18 an hour, folding the corrugated boxes that are used at Amazon distribution places along the East Coast. So I said, would you give me the information? And she said, absolutely. But my thing is, those are the kinds of things we should be playing on television and saying, listen, this is what, it shouldn't be who do you know
That's right.
that you get connected to getting
That's
a
right.
job in the city of Newark.
Yes.
It should be
'Cause that
an
runs
open call.
Yeah. That runs
And that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons why
yeah.
people feel disconnected.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not part of the clique,
Yeah.
or if you on the outs with the person who's in charge of handing out all the jobs,
So you don't get the job.
then you don't get a job, and that should not be. That's not fair. The resumes should be coming in, flooding the city of Newark, and they should be looked at through the Department of Personnel, categorized. The Mayor's Office of Employment and Training, they should be categorizing. These people are highly skilled. These are moderate skills. These are low-level skills. These are people who really are able to do the basics, okay? And then make sure you concentrate on the industry that these people fit into those categories,
Sure.
and continue to work with those industries, but continue filling that pool. If you see that you have too many people, we had a headhunter that was hired for the city of Newark that was supposed to take care of the people who had the college degrees and looking for administrative type jobs. That lasted maybe 5 months, and then she got a job. All right, so it's not so she didn't get replaced.
Right.
All right, so the person who comes in, if I have a college, we have so many people walking around now with college degrees that can't find
Sure,
jobs.
that's the truth.
It's
That's
not
the truth.
fair to them
No, it's not.
that they don't have access.
Because also they have a debt to pay.
They have a student loan
student
debt
loan.
that is enormous.
Yeah, it's like a house loan.
It's like a house,
Yeah.
mortgage. You know, I turned around, I said to one of the people in charge of workforce development at one time, why don't we have people trained in reupholstery work?
Yes.
Because it's a skill that's dying,
Yes.
all right? It's a trade that's dying. But it was threefold. Number one, you could do it immediately.
Sure.
And we had people who are doing it for other people to pay them to come and train people. Now, what you get out of that is you create entrepreneurs.
Sure.
But then we can turn around and have people do draperies and stuff like that. And we can go to all those hospitals in the city of Newark and say, you know what? Instead of you buying that little curtain, that partition curtain that separates somebody in the room,
Sure.
give it to the Newark Sewing Center.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
So now we have a place where people they can buy merchandise from us.
Sure.
Okay? Then you also will turn around and create entrepreneurs, because when somebody is really good, they'll go out on their own and start. But then you could turn around and say to those people who want to get their chair reupholstered,
Sure.
bring your chair down to us. Or when stuff gets thrown out through recycling, we can take it to the Newark Sewing Center, have them fix it and practice on it, and you can sell it back to our people
Sure,
for a
sure,
cheaper price.
Sure.
So this is what happens in the Ironbound. The dollar circulation
Circulate a lot.
stays down there, because that's one of the things that's missing in our communities. When I grew up, you didn't go downtown
Right.
except for special occasions.
Sure.
because we went to Prince Street or Springfield Avenue because those kind of amenities, the things that we needed, the clothing stores, the furniture stores, the bridal shops,
right
the restaurants, they were on our corridors, and so we have to rebuild our corridors. And it's not just putting an awning up over our corridors; it's about starting with maybe 3 or 4 blocks and creating critical mass. When Sharp James administration, Bessie Walker and Hector Cachado and Mamie Bridgeforth, Donald Tucker, Donald Bradley, and the rest of us, what we did was, Louis Quintana, what we did was we said, let's take this stretch. So from Bergen Street up to South 10th Street, you have Applebee's there now.
Yes,
it was right across from the movie theater.
Yes.
You have Home Depot.
Yes, that's
so
right.
you have activity, Wendy's. All that was done by design. Because if you start in critical mass, then you can take another 12 blocks and do something.
Sure.
You can take another, and it keeps expanding and keep expanding. But when you say that you're starting from the base of South Orange Avenue and taking it all the way up to Sanford Avenue for a special improvement district, that's not feasible. It's not beneficial because you're not going to see the results. It's like giving a whale a Tic Tac.
Yes.
It's not.
Well,
It's not going to be
I'm glad you
substantive.
mentioned that area, which is Velsburg section.
Oh yes.
One of the citizens, I was talking with her the other night. She told me to ask you this right here, or to tell you that when you get in office, that perhaps maybe you can get people to clean South Orange Avenue.
Oh my God! It's not just
To
South
clean
Orange
South Orange
Avenue,
Avenue.
but listen.
But she's
this
on Pine
city,
Road.
yes.
She says she's in the tenant association up there. She said that
Absolutely.
it's so much different from her side of the street, and if
And
you go
South
up,
Orange.
or
The
East
city of
Orange.
South Orange.
Right, yes,
And
or
East
East
Orange,
Orange.
yes.
She said that it's just so different that it's like,
It's embarrassing.
have you
it's,
forgotten
it's
us?
unhealthy.
You know?
I'm telling you, the hue and cry out here is, what about us?
Yeah.
You know, and so listen, there was a lag in the street sweeping contract.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that, okay? And I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, as far as an opponent would be concerned.
Sure.
But not at the expense of the residents.
Sure.
This city is the filthiest it has ever been.
Wow.
It's you can drive every area of the city and see garbage just piled up. And so that leads to a breakdown mentally of your residents.
Sure.
Filthy city, filthy minds, filthy atmosphere. You don't expect anything better. And so you got to break that cycle. And it should have never been allowed to happen, number one. Number two, now that you know it, fix it.
Sure.
Clean it up.
Sure.
There has to be consistency.
Sure.
People were told to put their bulk out on a second Wednesday of the month, and then you don't pick up the second Wednesday of the month because you're picking up trash because you're behind the trash. Well, how do the citizens know that?
Exactly.
We can contact them when we're running for office. So how do we lose touch? How do we lose touch? How do we lose your number when it comes time to do city services? Or saying we're changing the services. We're not gonna pick up on bulk day. You have access to email,
Sure.
text messages. Send people alerts. Let them know. The one thing I can't stand in government is when people ask a question, you just refuse to answer. Well, people just would like to know. If my garbage can't go out on that day, at least let me know.
Sure,
Don't let me leave it out there, and then the cats and the rats and the kids and everybody pull it apart, and I see it out there.
And today, the raccoons.
The raccoons. You know, so it's a matter of respect.
Yes.
Respect and communicating to your citizens. And that's the one thing Gayle Chaneyfield office and administration will do. We'll be respectful enough because no is even a response.
Sure.
But people don't understand.
Complete sentence, actually.
If we say no because we can't do this because.
Right.
But people have a right to ask.
Of course,
why aren't
taxes,
you doing it? You're paying taxes.
You
live here in the city.
Sure.
You made an investment, and you want to. And even if you're a renter, you're staying.
Sure.
So people want to know what's going on. Why is this building being built and there's no people of color working on the job site?
Yeah.
So if you say that, okay, we have a great relationship with unions, where's the people that look like us?
Exactly. Working.
Working. And if we don't have a great, one of the things that really upset me was when we had an opportunity, the advisory school board had an opportunity, because 3 years in 2013, they were paying approximately $3 million to people to advise them about development.
Wow.
And they didn't ever advise them that their lease was going to be expiring at 2 Cedar Street.
Okay.
Here was the perfect opportunity to gear up and say, you know what? We're going to take one of the existing public schools, tear it down, because we've depopulated a lot of these schools.
Sure.
And we're going to build our own headquarters from the ground up.
Sure.
The economic stimulus alone that would have done for our city. We had paid $120 million to rent that building from Harts Mountain for the last 20 years.
The old Two Guys building.
That old Two Guys building.
Wow.
20 years with Harts Mountain, the city of Newark's Board of Education was locked into a lease. And the lease was expiring, so this was their opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to hook up with the various schools, we're going to do pre-apprentice programs, and so when it's time to leave that building, even though we have to move into other buildings temporarily, we will have stimulated the economy.
Sure.
We will have made sure that our people finally get the jobs, okay? Because they're now spending $42 million in a smaller building, but we're still not going to own the building after it's all said and done.
They didn't buy the building.
No.
They're renting the building.
They're renting the building. So you wasted $120 million 10 years prior to that. And it was various school board members, but my thing was, now that you know,
Sure.
don't go into a rental. Go into buying land or knocking down one of the buildings and rehabbing that, because it certainly would have cost us less than $42 million to rehabilitate a building, but it would have stimulated the economy
yes,
of the indigenous people, the
Sure.
people who live here, the
yeah.
guys who had contracting business, the ones who can spackle a wall, who can't get a job
Sure.
because they don't have a union book. Okay, union, we're going to let you do this building, but guess what? We got 50 people over here who know how to paint and spackle,
That's right.
and so you're going to put them in the union if you want to get part of this $42 million.
Contract, right? Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That's the way government is supposed to negotiate, in order to make sure that you take care of the people who you don't know.
Yes. Yes. Gail, my last question would be, again, from the senior in Bellsburg. And she worded it like this. She said, there's a house on Pine Grove, a few houses, empty houses. One in particular that's been empty for 20 years that the bank is holding on to. And people run in it, there's holes in it, rat infested and things of that nature.
Yes.
When you get in office, what are you going to do different?
First of all, the city council mandates every year where the monies are deposited for the city of Newark. City of Newark has a $600 million some odd budget.
Sure.
I remember in 2003, we had an issue with a bank that had signed what was called then the Newark Agreement.
Okay.
And it was prompted by citizen action. And they were coming up on the expiration date of it. And the late Councilman Donald Tucker was in charge of the banking committee. I was on it. He had been ill. But I had called him up because the woman, Phyllis K. Sallow from Citizen Action, came and brought it to my attention that this Newark agreement existed. I was like, wow, I never even realized that.
Mm-hmm.
But it said that you had to give out, in order for this bank to keep their rating and keep the federal government from taking over, they had done something they had no business doing. But it talked about the Community Reinvestment Dollars,
Okay.
Community Reinvestment Act. And so they were supposed to give out $7 million between mortgages and small businesses to people of color, minorities.
Sure.
And this was a 7-year window that they had to do this. Well, in that time frame, they hadn't. I think they gave out like maybe 12 mortgages,
Okay.
and they were all in the ironbound. And they may have done 2 or 3 businesses. And I'm like, how could this be? That means you actively did not put together a financial literacy program.
Sure.
You didn't put people in place so that they can be prepared to get themselves credit worthy, to be able to purchase the homes and things like that. So you just didn't care. But then I went one step further and I said, let's look and see where they were putting the Community Reinvestment Act money that you're supposed to contribute. They were taking the money that we had $20 million in their bank on a regular annual basis that came through their bank on a regular.
Sure.
They were taking our money and giving $1.5 million to a senior recreation center up in Summit.
Wow.
They were funding children programs in Fairfield and in Glenridge. Excuse me, it's our money. It's our interest. You're not even reinvesting back into the city that's giving you the $20 million. So the accountability of the banks. A lot of these banks, and listen, I went through foreclosure, all right, and I know how painful it is. And I know that there are people who walk away from their homes because they can't take it anymore.
Sure.
Okay? So we need to make the banks more accountable as to how they spend the Reinvestment Act money.
Sure.
Because they should be reinvesting back into our community, or we won't put our money in your bank.
Exactly.
We took $20 million out of that bank because they refused to come and meet with us in Newark. The woman said, "Oh, I don't feel safe." I said, "You don't feel safe? You're supposed to bring every one of your family members with you, honey, and bring them to City Hall because now you're going to have to explain to the president why $20 million was taken out your bank." And we did that. All right? But it reverberated around the country. People were calling us, "What did you guys do?" So that went by the wayside. It wasn't sustainable. And that's the thing about the Chaneyfield Jenkins administration. Things that you know work, you have to make sure that they're sustainable.
Sure.
That they're in place even after you're gone, because that is why we have a constitution. That's why we have a Bill of Rights. That's why we have the Voting Act. Because Adam Clayton Powell, with the minimum wage, he thought enough to say, you can't go below this line. And each year it increased. That's what government is supposed to do.
Sure.
Put things in place for generations to come to be able to benefit from it and to be able to have a healthier and quality of life that exceeded what their parents and their grandparents had.
Sure. Well, Gayle, we're going to end with this here. What date? What column? Who's running on your column?
The election for the city of Newark is May 8th. And I, Gayle Chaneyfield Jenkins, am running for mayor in the city of Newark. My candidates that are running with me at large is former Councilwoman Bessie Walker, who has decided to put her hand back on the plow.
Okay.
She never took it off. She does it privately.
I've
but
heard a lot about Bessie.
Yeah, Bessie Walker. She's a fighter and a champion. Former Councilman Hector Corchado.
Okay, I heard of him. Yes.
He's coming back, and we have a young lady who who was on the school board for her term was 3 years. Ariana Perillo. She's an educator, and she was very involved. And then in the West Ward, we have a young lady named Emeka Keys.
The senior talked about it. Emeka Keys.
Yes.
He talked
young,
about
dynamic, young woman who has a lot of energy, has a lot of ideas.
Yes.
And in the South Ward, we left the South Ward open.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We left the South Ward open. In the North Ward, we have a young girl running named Catilia Velez.
Okay.
And she her father was a judge in the city of Newark, a Milico Velez, and he also helped start a lot of nonprofits.
Okay.
But she's a true social justice champion, and she's a fighter as well. And in the mighty Central Ward,
All right.
my home base,
Your home base.
I am proud to give you an exclusive.
I'm proud to have it. I just want to ask one more question.
Yes.
When is the debate?
Well, I'm not sure when the debates are. They will have a series of debates. But, you know...
We want to be there.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
We want you to be like you are here. We want you
Oh.
to give the energy. Because people talk about you. They like you. They like you. But they want to hear more of you.
And I'm going to be doing that. And the reason why a lot of people still know me is because I was at large.
Yes.
But I was concentrating on running in the Central Ward. And it was not until I got that spiritual
Sure.
feeling and emotion to say, do this. And so this is historic. I'll be running not as the first female, but as a female mayor. We would make history in the city of Newark. I have a slate of 6 women running with me. And the exclusive I'm going to give you is there's a gentleman by the name of Rashawn Hassan who is going to be running in the Central Ward on the ticket with us.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I want to reach out to those people and I want to interview them.
Yes, I'm going to make sure you are able to reach out to them. But thank you for giving me this platform.
Yes.
Because, you know, people put stock in polls, people put stock in debates, people put stock in Facebook,
Sure.
which is the devil's tool, but that's another story for another day. But the thing that I ask people to do is put their faith in the fact that what you see is the Newark that you know. And if your life is not better than it has been in the last 4 years, then you have the opportunity on May 8th, 2018 to give women and some men an opportunity to make real changes in the city of Newark. We are not going to wave a magic wand and everything is going to go away, but you will have good government.
Sure.
You will have transparent government. You will have government that is accountable to the citizens, customer service.
Sure.
You will have clean streets, because we can't understand why anybody would have the streets this dirty and for this long.
Sure.
I mean, Mayor Lindsay lost an election in New York when he was the mayor because of a snowstorm, and he was in Jamaica and the garbage was all piled up and there was a garbage man strike, and that was back in the 70s. I mean, the late 60s, because I was a kid when that happened.
Sure.
Okay, John Lindsay lost the election. The basic essential rights that citizens have as taxpayers is for police protection, is for clean streets, is for their property taxes not to go up crazy, and most importantly, to have their government officials accessible.
Yes.
And when they come to City Hall, be treated with respect, not have phones ringing, not have phone numbers not being answered, because that's so disrespectful.
Sure.
You know, and at the end of the day, you will have in the Chaneyfield Jenkins administration true public servants.
Well, I'm enjoying this interview with you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Jackson. I appreciate it.
And I want you to fly. I want you guys to really take it to another level.
Absolutely.
And these are some wings I got from the airline.
Thank you.
And, you know.
And you know, this is my logo. My logo is angels.
Yes.
Because I believe with all of my family as I know it is gone now. So I know that there are angels, and I know that God's hand is in this election.
Yes.
It's people like you who validate it for us. Thank you so much.
Thank
My
you.
wings.
Your wings. Fly.
Fly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.